Good morning, and thank you for coming your way briefly. The few thoughts about admission at Bidvest institution, where we have provided services for half a decade. My name is Edgar Afula, and I'll be taking you through the processes of registration, admission, and thereafter involvement in the venture leadership programs, which are core thematic areas that we have specialized at our institution. Just to remind you, we are a social service institution, and in the Republic of Kenya, we are approved under Social Assistance Act number 24 of January 2013, with the primary objective of providing social services and advancing the aspirations of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. You and I know very well that the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals were adopted in September 2015 by 192 member states of the United Nations, including Kenya, which is a signatory to various other treaties and conventions, including the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the Universal Declarations of Human Rights 1948, other protocols and treaties that involved social development. Our role as an institution that is established in the Department of Social Service is to ensure that whatever the Constitution of Kenya 2010 has stipulated, and more so under Article 43.3, is really implemented at a grassroots, community, and the national level. The Sustainable Development Goals, which are commonly known as the SDGs, the first two of them talks about poverty and hunger, and I'll put much of emphasis, energy, and time on that because those are some of the critical areas which are actually psychological in nature, whereby we see under the 7 hierarchy of human needs, it's very difficult for one to, actualize him or herself without going through or fulfilling the basic needs, which is actually the most important aspect of human life. What we do is that under the Sustainable Development Goal number 1 and 2, we came to notice that we as Kenyan especially, we have 54 million people who are Kenyans and must have access to the basic needs, and which are articulated on the first and second, SDG as spelled out by the United Nations Charter. But again, as an institution, we may not have such capacity to ensure that everyone is fed, everyone has access to education because of our limited possibilities. So what we decided collectively as an institution and based on the framework of the national government is that we are going to recognize and understand those youths of ours who are in a position to lead their venture in their field of specialization so that they can stand on their own independent of us, and as we help other members of our society and as we train them and incubate them to becoming the executives and independent members of this society. It will be very much easy and good for us if we train those youths to be their own ambassadors of their ventures, directors, and executives, and it will going to reduce our tasks at our end while promoting their affairs individually. This will give us ample time to handle the vulnerable members of our society who are unable to stand on their own on the account of lack of the requisite knowledge to perform such functions as leading a venture. Admission at our institution starts with an oral interview where we are going to first check, is the person concerned humanitarian enough? Does he or she likely to excavate such, traits as a humanitarian person? Is he or she likely to give back to the community where we all belong? Those are some of the basic requirements that may not be written. As we go on, after that oral assessment, an applicant is subjected to completion of Form MAF, which is Mutual Assistance Application Form. The Mutual Assistance Application Form has three important components. The first component on the Mutual Assistance Application Form is the data collection consent. The data collection consent is stated as follows. That is, pursuant to the Data Protection Act 2019, the European Union General Data Protection Regulations, and African Union Convention on Data Protection Regulations, our institution is required in its capacity or through a data controller and or processor must obtain your explicit, affirmative and informed consent before it can collect any data for a law basis. For us to effectively manage and carry out your affairs, we are required by the Kenyan law, the European Union law and African Union laws to 1. Ask your consent before we can collect, store and process your personal information. In order for us to store, process and collect your information, you must give us a consent in writing that indeed I, Edgar Fuller, being a bona fide or prospective member to come, do hereby agree to 1. Store, collect and process my personal information. We have the second part, which is a disclaimer that the information provided thereof is solely meant to help us provide the requisite services, and it cannot be used for any other purpose apart from the one mentioned thereof. If the circumstances demand that we share with other third parties, such information may only be furnished in strict confidence and without responsibility on the part of our institution, its agent or staff. Please note that we are exempted pursuant to the Data Protection Act Regulations 2021 for mandatory data controller registration by the laws of the Republic of Kenya based on our institutional capacity. The third or the last option is now an applicant must carefully read through the instructions given thereof by completing the biodata, the institutional information, and the venture information. Thereafter, there is a section of venture leadership application where you have to come up with a venture statement on your expected venture based on your thematic concerned. Immediately the form is completed, and Social Protection Officer at our institution shall verify and thereafter comment based on the needs of the person under review. The last part of it is, after commenting that indeed the applicant has a specific problem, the person is going to be subjected to such program as Venture Leadership Department may decide. Thank you so much, and I look forward to having you.